I know of hundreds, maybe thousands of cases where deals fall through even when the seller is willing to go through with the transaction. You're willing, but there are people who are an obstacle. Can you? Can you hear me now? How are you all doing? Or was it the food or just so boring? Let's go one more time. How are you all doing? All right. Cool. Who knows me or who doesn't know me? Hasn't seen me before. I love it. So that means I need to inspire myself a bit more so that you get to know me. All right, folks, let's talk about a very interesting transaction. It's called subject to. Has anyone heard of what's called subject to before? Yes. Perfect. Has anyone here done subject to before? Just the gentleman? Okay. So far. And it's one of the transactions I would say the second most sensitive. Is there a more sensitive one? When I talk about sensitivity, I mean that these are somewhat complex technical transactions. They're not complex, they're easy to understand, and I'm going to explain it to you in a very simple way. They are a bit technical, so if you don't know what you're doing, the deal could fall through. Okay, ready? So, I'm going to explain it to you in a very simple way. Ready? Does anyone here shop at Costco? And where do the others shop? Walmart. Isn't great? Okay. What is subject to, folks? It's called subject to because it's subject to the existing mortgage. When you are buying a property, real estate, you are making two transactions. Many times you think you're buying a house, and yes, you are buying a house, and the title company or the lawyers, depending on the state, do what's called a deed transfer, which in English is called the deed. Are we aware of that, right? But when you go to Wells Fargo or Citibank or Bank of America or your local credit union, you apply for a loan, and that's the second transaction. We're aware of that, right? But when you go to Wells Fargo or Citibank or Bank of America or your local credit union, you apply for a loan, and that's the second transaction. Are we good so far? When the bank approves the loan, I'm going to use English terms, folks. You need to learn the terms in English. I know our main language is Spanish, but we live in the US, so we have to understand the terminology in English. I know our main language is Spanish, but we live in the US, so we need to comprehend the terminology in the English language. Specifically, the bank does what's called recording or registering a mortgage or a security deed or a deed of trust, okay? In this context, it is important to understand the process of how these terms are used. It's the same dog with a different name. Each state has a different name for it, but just don't worry about that, all right? And that's simply the instrument that essentially assures the bank that if you stop paying for the property, the bank can do a foreclosure and take the property back. Are we in agreement? I was talking to someone yesterday. Who was I talking to? I was talking about that topic just last night. She was asking me, I saw her. She was asking me, Alexis, I have some capital that I would like to invest. What can I do to make sure that money is well invested? And I told her that first I gave her several numerical tips, right? But I said, it's very important. I see a lot of American people out there, but especially Latinos. Hey, lend me $100,000. If nothing happens, here you go. Here's the $100,000, just a handshake. You shake my hand and that's it. And others tell me, no, I protect myself. Make a promissory note. Who here is married? When you got married, and you were at that dinner with your wife or husband, and you were perhaps writing down on a napkin the goals, dreams, and aspirations you were going to achieve together as a couple in your life? Is that really enough? No. What is valid in a marriage? It's the marriage certificate. They give you, okay. The promissory note is a napkin. Alexis, but can I do it? No. Should I do it? Yes, do it. Yeah. But that is literally a napkin where you go there with your partner or the person you are going to lend money to. I am getting into another topic, but it is good. It is important. It has to do with services. When you lend money to that person, those are such as the detailed outlines and descriptions of all key points of the conditions of that loan. But if you have to do a foreclosure, then indeed the judge is going to ask you where exactly your mortgage document is. I don't know, sir, but I can't do a foreclosure for you. So what you need to do is a mortgage, a deed of trust, or a security, depending on your state. Ask ChatGPT or ask the local title company and they'll tell you what the correct name is. In the end, it's the same. Okay. And then you're going to remember a mortgage. Going back to the topic of subject 2, mortgage is a transaction, or the loan is a transaction in the buying and selling of a house, and the deed is the second transaction. Now, in a subject to transaction, let's say a traditional transaction, you go to the bank, you qualify for a loan, and you buy the house, and now you owe that money to the bank. Are we good up to that point, right? But the seller of the house, who was the previous owner, gets the full amount of money, the bank issues a check to the seller, and now you owe that debt to the bank. Are we good up to that point? But who owns that house? Not. And who determines that? What document determines that? The DID, the deed. Let's do an exercise so you can register it a little better. I'm going to explain it in a simple way. Most people here go to Costco. Okay, going to Costco. Imagine, I want you to literally visualize it. You're at Costco, you walked into the store, you grabbed your packages, your little things that you're going to take home for the week's shopping. You go to the counter and the lady says, well, sir, that's $300. Cool. You take out your credit card, your Visa, you pay her there, and she hands you a receipt. Are we in agreement? Because every time you leave Costco through the door, what's the first thing they ask you for? The receipt. What is it that proves you own that purchase? So the receipt and how you paid, which means you have a debt to whom? But who is the owner? Why? Because I have the receipt. If a police officer stops you on the street and says you stole that purchase, you say, no, look, here it is. I just paid for it. The receipt identifies that you are the owner. I just paid for it. The receipt identifies that you are the owner. No, excuse me, sir. Okay, you're right. You are the owner of that purchase. But who do you owe that money to? Now, you all know that you do subject to every day. And people haven't realized that in real estate, it's very common to do subject to. What does it mean? That Alex is selling his residence, and I come to an agreement with him. I say, Alex, you know you have a really attractive interest rate for me. You bought it in 2020, and that interest rate was at 2%. How are the interest rates these days? It's too high for me. It doesn't make sense to me as a buyer to buy that house at an 8% interest rate. Are we in agreement? And I say to him, you know what, Alex, what if we do a subject to transaction? I elaborate on it in great detail to Alex, who is indeed the actual seller. And now what I'm going to do is buy his house. The deed is going to be transferred to my name. Okay. Alex gives me the receipt so that when I leave the store, I have the proof that I am the owner of that purchase. Are we in agreement? So he gives me the deed, obviously through a title company. The deed is handed to me, and that gets recorded in the public records, and I am the owner of that property right now. But I didn't go to the bank to apply for a loan because for me, the loan he has today with Bank of America, for example, at 2% was more attractive. And I say to Alex, let's leave that loan as it is. And I say to Alex, let's leave that loan as it is. How much do you pay monthly? I pay $1,800 from now on. Starting in October, I'm going to start paying $1,800. It works for me because if I take out a new loan at 8%, I'm probably going to pay $2,500. That's called subject to. Is it clear now? Now, is it clearer? Yes, I'm going to give you a few examples. That's me. You know who I am? Here. I'm going to briefly touch on the topic of owner financing. The main topic is objective, but I'm going to do it on purpose because there's something called hybrid. And this afternoon, we're going to do an exercise with Julio Solis' team, who I think went out for lunch. But we're going to do the exercise, and today we want people to walk away with a deal. I don't guarantee you that you will make a subjective deal. But why? It's important for me that you understand this. One of the shortcomings of investors today is that they either buy with hard money or cash. And they miss out on a lot of opportunities because they focus too much on the numbers. No, the numbers don't add up for me. I can't buy that house. because there are other tools that they don't know about and don't apply. And if you notice, in today's calls, we realized the case where you know that method applied for this transaction is objective. You already have the knowledge. What applies here is seller finance. You already have the knowledge. What applies here is seller finance. You already have the knowledge. Here, what you apply is a hybrid. You already have the knowledge. That's why I'm going to touch on this. Seller financing is very simple, folks. Seller financing is when the seller finances the property. He himself becomes the bank. Okay, usually seller financing, and I want you to associate the following. We can associate seller financing with the word greed in a good way. Let me explain. Many times the property has no mortgage. It's clear. It's free of debt. Okay. And the owner says, if I sell the house for $300,000, I'll pay capital gains tax. Likely on that $300,000, I'll pay $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 in gains. I don't want that. I'd rather essentially finance it for you. And the capital gains are postponed over time because you don't pay the IRS on money you haven't received. You pay the IRS on the money you received year. We agree? So if I'm financing it for him every month and he's paying me $2,000 a month, I'm only going to pay the IRS on the $2,000, not on the $300,000, the house costs or what I sold the house for. Are we in agreement? Which allows me to defer my capital gains and use other mixed strategies to end up paying zero. Okay, another advantage. If I sell him the house and he tells me, or financing, he tells me the bank is offering me an 8, it's attractive for him. Don't worry, I'll offer you a 6, it's attractive for him. I sold the house for $300,000 and I made a 6% amortized over 30 years. That house probably generated me an extra $200,000 in interest. So over time, I made $500,000. It's attractive, right? That's seller finance. Okay, this is the same. Wasn't this the same thing I explained to you? There we make the purchase, we pay with a credit card, and they give me the receipt from Kroger or Costco. That's what proves that you are the owner of that purchase, but now you have a debt with Visa or MasterCard or American Express or whatever card you used. But the second transaction, remember that there are 2 transactions, right? The second transaction is this one. Here, this is failing me. Here we have transaction number 1, transaction number 2. We agree that in real estate, it's the same. We have transaction number 1, mortgage. In fact, I crossed them, but basically, this is the equivalent of this one. I didn't cross it. It's that Spanish translation is gente morga. Let's say mortgage. We have a credit card mortgage because now I owe transaction to Wells Fargo, Bank of America, or any bank where I made the transaction. And of course, the deed, this is the evidence. It's the same example I explained to you. You already know what put here. Will Chase, Wells Fargo Bank, what are the benefits for the seller? 1,000. Because you might say, Alexis, why would I do something like that? Let someone buy the house, keep paying the loan that's in my name. I'm going to explain it to you. Potential to get a higher selling price, it's one of the benefits. And let's go to a real example. I'm going to give an example of a house that I bought at Soli Club. The buyer takes full responsibility for the entire mortgage note and all associated obligations. Closing costs are lower. And in case of any default, the seller will take back the property and retain all the invested money. So essentially, there is no risk because the loans are fully secured or collateralized by a tangible property. What is the benefit for you as a buyer? The potential to get a better interest rate than the one currently on the market, like the example I just explained to you right now. If we're going to do an exercise right now, we're going to look for properties where the loans originated in 2019, 2020, and up to 2021 before interest rates changed. So we can start calling these types of people who have loans originated at 2, 3, 4, or 5% interest. In fact, in my buy box, don't buy anything with an interest rate greater than 5%. And when I'm presented with a deal where the interest is 5 or 6%, I immediately say no. I have to have the discipline to say no. Why? Because I really don't want to pay more than 5%. And when interest rates keep going down per the Fed until 2026, in fact, if you look right now, the 5-year Treasury bond is at 3.68. I think it closed yesterday. If you add 3 and 33, which is the spread that banks usually use right now, the interest you might get is maybe 6.98. I'm talking about a tenant to the back. I'm talking about traditional banks. Okay, so they're going down, but we still have to give them a chance to drop a little more. Ready? So closing costs are more affordable, and this slide wasn't supposed to be there. Take advantage, scan it. I was going to go later, but scan it. Those are common questions. In fact, we can discuss them now. It's all good. Let us know when everyone downloads it. I'm giving you a little gift. It's a PDF that has common questions. They could even be called objections for you to handle with the seller. Okay. What is object to? We already explained it, right? It's in English. Guys, that's a really good question. Many times, a lot of real estate agents know that it's legal. Do you know what's interesting? Look for hot settlement. Everyone knows what a sermendejo is. And if you don't, it's no big deal. I'm here with pleasure to explain it to you. Okay, cool. The hold is what the title company uses. Make the transaction. It's the document that you're going to see. House purchase for 400,000. The down payment is 80,000. And you're going to see the entire breakdown. Okay, when you look for clause number 203 and 503, says subject to existing mortgage. So HOD, which is a federal agency of the US, it's the same government that created a document that tells you that in clause 203 or 503, you pass the subjectivity. And that's the same document that real estate agents use to make transactions. And they are the ones who dare to say it's illegal. Do you know why they say that? Because they lack knowledge? Okay, but it's important to keep this in mind because, folks, I lost a deal. This is the biggest irony in the world. I had a deal in Cleveland where the real estate agent said the property had been on the market for 5 months, and we're going to see that. It's been on the market 5 times. And they couldn't sell it, they couldn't sell it, they couldn't sell it. I make the approach, I offer the subjectivity. The realtor tells me that's illegal. I give him the whole explanation that I'm explaining to you, but he was stubborn. This is tough, really stubborn. It just so happens that I met the lady, the saleswoman later on. One of those coincidences of life. And when I talk to her about that subject and she says, tell me more, explain it to me more, I give her the whole explanation and she tells me I'm interested in doing that. We talked along with the realtor and realtor the god, if you make that transaction, I'm going to sue you. And I told the lady, look, we have 2 options. We can make the transaction and take the risk. It's going to lose the lawsuit because this is legal. And I showed her the hot document. Okay, or we can do it in a calm way. There are other strategies. Let's do a lease option, okay? An option to buy where every payment I make amortizes the principal. In 5 or 6 months, when the contract is up, the realtor is out. And things have calmed down, we execute the purchase through that subject. Okay, financially, it wasn't the same. The difference, what was going to happen is that the deed was going to be transferred to my name 4 or 5 months later. That will be the only difference. Okay, between one thing and another, the deal fell through. But it's crucial to remember, you need to be well informed as you're going to find agents out there who tell you, no, that's illegal. Yes, sir, it's legal. Look for the hot in clause 203. That's a particular case. Every time I tell the realtor to look for clause 203, the hot, and go subject the existing mortgage, there's a 10-second silence in the conversation.
What's that called where all that is?
It's called hot, H for Hector, U for U, D for finger. Go to Google and type in hot settlement. It will show up. Put hot settlement, PDF, PDF. Okay? And I think the first one or the second one, actually, let's do it here. I have the deed here. I forgot that little detail. Look at it there. It's the first one with me too. That's the document. Every time you do a closing, that document is filled out at the title company. If we look here, check this out, clause 203, you can see from there. It's not visible. Let me see if I can zoom in on it. Existing loan taken subject to, and if we go to the right side to clause number 503, existing loan or loans, because there can be multiple loans taken subject to, and when you show that to the realtor goes silent for 10 seconds. Interesting, right? What education is. And that's key, people, because you're providing education without a license. Realtor is going to walk out of here more educated than a lot of the real estate agents out there. I'm teaching gold, folks. It cost me over $30,000 to learn this information. I studied it for the price you all paid for this event. Okay. Almost for free because you paid something, 40, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. What's next? And they say assumption. Important, I like that. 1,000, you know that you can just basically take over someone else's mortgage. That's called a loan assumption. I'm assuming the loan. What's the difference? In a subject to, essentially the loan remains in the seller's name. The deed transfers to your name. We have that clear, right? In the loan assumption, you essentially go to the bank and they say, where's Fargo? The loan that Alex has basically has a 2% interest rate, and I'm interested in qualifying for that loan without touching it. And now Wells Fargo tells you, perfect, let's do a loan assumption. And now you're going to go through the process of qualifying for that loan. This is ridiculous what I'm about to explain now, but Alex remains as the guarantor for the principal. So I have to qualify for that loan, and Alex too, even though he already owns the house. They'll have to do the background check again, and the process is usually much longer. The last time I went through a loan assumption, it was for multifamily, but it took 9 months. Wasn't subject to easier? Either way, the seller went through the same process, and what they really want is to get out of the property. So for me, I don't like it. I don't recommend it. It doesn't make sense. And many times it happens when the seller says, I don't feel comfortable having the property in my name. When I explain what a loan is, many times they ask me, why don't we do a loan assumption? There are sellers out there who know. I say, I have no problem, but you have to understand the following. The process takes a long time, longer than a normal loan. They're going to requalify you again. They're going to qualify me. And in the end, when they approve the loan, you remain as the guarantor, which means that if I don't pay the loan, the bank is going to come after you. So it doesn't make sense. Okay. I found that occasionally the bank often doesn't include it in the mortgage contract. The lawyer, right? It's a bank, because I talk to some people. I meet with people, but I don't know if it's true. I'm not going to, that's there, we'll get to that. I'll answer you. She has a good valid point, but I want to answer it for you. It's the following one. Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. What she says is that banks don't like kind of transaction. And the answer is true, they don't like it. Okay? They have a specific clause in the loan known as the due on sale clause. Okay, what does that mean? If the bank finds out that the deed was transferred, they have the right, not the obligation, to call the loan due, which means they can say, Alex, I found out that you sold your house and transferred the deed to so-and-so, and the loan is still in your name. I'm going to give you 30 days. Or they call the buyer and say, you have 30 days to pay me that loan. That happens, and it has happened. And that happens once in every 1,000 cases. It's the average that the statistics say, okay, it happens very rarely. Why? Because the bank's business is to do a foreclosure, or the bank's business is for us to pay the loan. For us to pay the loan. In 99.99% of the cases where that happens, it's because the loan payments are stopped. Okay. 1 or 2 didn't know how to handle the insurance policy. Okay. And the insurance policy, remember that in a mortgage, there's what's called the PT, which stands for principal interest. That's the portion that the bank receives. So taxes and insurance are the taxes and the insurance that you pay for the policy, right? If the house burns down or something like that, what happens? That payment is included in the PT, which is mortgage payment, plus the taxes, plus the insurance. It's included in the payment. For example, if you pay $1,800 for your house, and look it up later when you can, those who are homeowners should check their statement, and you'll see it says, for example, $1,800, and you'll see your mortgage payment is actually $1,500. The other $300 is said to go to escrow. I don't know if you've seen that. It says it goes to escrow. That's the portion that the bank is accumulating in an escrow account to pay the government taxes and the insurance at the end of the year. Because what used to happen was that people weren't paying, that didn't exist, and people were paying the mortgage. And when the end of the year came, they didn't have the money to pay the taxes and the insurance, and the bank then had to foreclose on the house. To avoid that, many years ago, they included the taxes and insurance in the mortgage payment. Ready? Now, you need to know how to handle it. I'm not going to get into that detail because the process of managing the insurance policy is a bit more complex, but we can touch on that later, or you can call me and we can talk. I have no problem doing that. In fact, I'm going to raffle off a free session with me, 1 hour for free with me. She won one yesterday. And you're next. So I'm going to give away a session, folks. I usually charge for this, but I'm really going to do it completely free because I want to share a bit more information. So we'll see that later. We left off at the point that, it's illegal, sorry. The banks don't like it. Alexis, what happens if it happened to me in 1 out of every 1,000 deals? You just call the bank. If you're right, we did this, we transferred the deed, and, well, we're making the payment just fine. Most of the time, the bank doesn't care because as long as the payment is being made, they're comfortable, okay? The problem is when the loan stops being paid. Yes, there are cases where the bank says they don't like it and they need you to pay the debt. There are different ways to handle the case. One way, number one, is to essentially return the deed to the seller. And now you basically create a land contract. Okay? You still own the property, you have control of the property, but the deed is transferred to his name. You can even do an additional exercise if you want. The document, the deed, is what says that I am the owner. Like that Costco receipt, right? What says that I am the owner? What do we do with receipts? We throw them away. In a property purchase and sale, that receipt will want to be recorded in the county. Are we in agreement? Now, he signs with a lawyer, notary, or title company, and I keep it without county registration. I store it in a bank vault. I can go to a bank that has vaults and keep it there for a certain period of time. And who is the owner of the property? Me, but in the public records, it still shows that it's in his name. Ready? That's another strategy. Strategy number 3. Let's do this. I return the deed to his name and we do a lease option. What is a lease option? Commonly used in real estate. Everyone knows that a lease option is not an option, it is a rent with an option to buy. The difference is that if I'm buying the house from him for $200,000, I put in the contract that every payment I make will pay down the principal. It means that when in 2 years, if I want to say, you know what, Alex, go ahead and transfer the deed to my name now. Cool, no problem. I'm going to execute my exercise. My exercise of buying the property and transferring it to my name. Now I am the owner, but everything I paid for those 2 years goes towards the principal. Okay? And that's basically it. Answer your question, lawyer. What happens if you stop making payments? Well, that's just a basic and simple contract. What happens if you stop making payments? Well, that's just a basic and simple contract. Everyone knows the answer. One way we can actually protect the brain, I do it. There's a concept in English called a wrap around the existing mortgage. Okay, what does that mean? That Alex's loan is at 2. I'm interested in that loan. Okay, and now, essentially, I can do the process of seller financing. Alex can do a seller finance to me. Are we in agreement? No, I don't want to. I see faces that are a little frustrated. No, trust me, raise your hand. Go back. Alex bought that house a few years ago. He bought it from Bank of America. So Bank of America has the loan? Are we good up to that point, right? I buy it from Alex now. We transfer the deed to my name. But the lawyer makes an important and significant additional note. Now Alex does a seller finance me. That existing loan he owes to Bank of America has an interest rate of 2.6%. For example, Alex gives me another loan at the same 2.6%. I'm inheriting same terms. The difference is that I now have a loan against Alex. And of course, Alex has a loan against Bank of America. What's going on? If I stop paying, Alex can foreclose against me, not Bank of America against me. Are we good up to that point? Alex forecloses against me and he takes the property back and continues paying for it from then on. That's called a wrap around the existing mortgage. Wrap around the existing mortgage. Translations are rare. All right, folks. Let's move on. People, I'm indeed giving you gold. At Anfield, I think we discussed that. The overwhelming majority of them is because they lack knowledge. They think it's illegal. We call them the HOT. That's a document they use every day. We already know the story. Next.
How are utilities and insurance handled?
How is the payment for utilities and insurance handled? The utilities that use and who owns that property now? It's me, right? So, who is responsible for paying the utilities? And who is responsible for paying the taxes? And who is responsible for paying the insurance? Ready?
Please kindly proceed to the next step. Now.
Why would a seller do this? Many cases. One of the cases I'm going to present to you now is a live case. One of the cases that has been happening, especially in the last 2 years, no equity deals. Deals that have no equity. This house that we are going to see soon is listed on the market. The lady bought it in 2022. And you know that when you make a mortgage payment for the first 10 years, 15 years, the payment towards the principal is very low. Almost everything is going to the bank in interest. Are we in agreement? Okay. So out of the $465,000 that the lady bought the house for, principal hadn't gone down much. So if she had to, she tried to sell the house, in fact, on the market, but she couldn't sell it because she wanted to. Who would like to sell a house and on top of that get a check for $30,000? No one. Well, that was her case because there wasn't enough equity to cover the closing costs. And I say, ma'am, if we do a subject to and I give you the whole explanation. Nothing. I love it. Properties that have no equity. Case number 1, properties that are in pre-foreclosure. There's pain, the person can't pay the mortgage, but that loan has a loan, an interest rate of 3. For me, that's attractive. I can buy it cash. Why would I do something like that at 8% interest when I can keep the assistant loan at 3? What? Okay, divorce. Another very similar case. Another case that's very similar. The person works for a company, 2009, and the company, they are here, they are Ohio, the family, everything is cool. And the company now tells the husband, they say, have a promotion for you, we're going to double your salary, but you have to move to California to live. Do they accept the position? Do they go over there? And what do they do there? They buy a new house, but they tried to sell the previous one here in Ohio, and they couldn't sell it. For many reasons, the market conditions, maybe it doesn't have enough equity, etc., etc., etc. And I make him the subject to offer. In fact, the case we're going to see was a mix of both. It was the lady, they moved her to another state, and in addition, she doesn't have to go. And that lady puts it on Airbnb to try to offset the income from property B, at least to sustain herself a bit. But she tells me, but I'm not in the real estate business. This is getting stuck with a tenant. This is a headache for me. And that's when I make him the offer for those items. Okay. Did I answer the question? Okay. What's next? The last is coming.
Can you tell me who the final individual is that possesses a particular factor and how this individual is involved in the process of transferring or selling this factor to another person? Please provide more details about the transaction and the parties involved. Just like that, the same procedure from the start of the documentation.
Okay. Several things. So you became a lender, right? You have to do hire an Armello? Okay. I'm not going to get into that detail. You can ask me later or Google it. Okay, this is number 2. You have to do it with an RMLO. You also have to do it with a title company, definitely. And it has to be a title company or a lawyer, right? It depends on the state. Yes. I answered your question. No. Yes, it's the same process. Remember, there are 2 transactions. Okay, so I'm going to break it down. I buy the house, the deed goes in my name. Are we clear on this? The loan stayed in the seller's name. 2, the veteran took out a veteran loan a long time ago, or 2 or 3 years ago. To me, that's appealing. I bought that loan and that loan pays $1,500 a month. Are we good up to that point, right? Cool. Now, my friend from Peru came who arrived a month ago in the US. He's making a lot of money. He's excited, but the bank isn't approving him for a loan. And usually the loan right now might be at 8, at 7. I tried to give him the same interest or maybe a little bit lower to make it fair, right? And now I offer it to him at 7% interest. Ready? That loan is a new loan that originates. I am the bank. Has anyone here bought a house with Bank X and a few years later received a letter from Bank Z saying that from now on, you won't be paying Wells Fargo anymore? From now on, you will be paying Citibank? Yes. It's exactly the same. Banks sell the loans. Loans are a mortgage note, it's an asset, it's an investment mechanism. 2 mortgages. The mortgage that's in the seller's name, it's in his name, isn't in your name, but you're responsible for paying it. Okay? And now you originate a new note, a new mortgage in the name of your friend from Peru, from Mexico, wherever. Okay? And now he is obligated to pay you that loan of $2,200. Now you pay Bank of America $1,500 and keep the $700. Are we good so far? And what happens? That if my Mexican friend stops paying me the loan, it's the same. You do a foreclosure, you keep the house, and you continue paying Alex's loan. Don't leave me hanging, okay? You are still responsible for that loan, because if you stop paying it, bank will call him and his credit will get damaged. Are we in agreement? We have to be responsible. The easiest way to do this is with a servicing company. A servicing company, this is what banks use. It costs $30 a month. It's very affordable. And what does the servicing company do? It automatically deducts the money from your Mexican friend who bought the house from his bank account. It automatically pays Bank of America the mortgage for Alan, and I keep the difference in my bank account. And you don't have to worry about collecting the money from so-and-so or paying Bank of America. I mean, they do everything automatically. That's what banks do. When you have 1 or 2 properties of that nature, perhaps it is not so tedious. But when you start reaching other levels and you have 20, 30, 40, 50, or even 100 properties, just imagine you're collecting from people. You're paying back Bank of America. I mean, $30 a month, a servicing company, they take care of whole transaction. Are we in agreement? Karia is going to pay Bank of America, hypothetical example, and we'll send an email to Alex, who is the seller. Alex, payment has just been made. I think I have a photo there. Let me see if I have it. After statement. And you're going to see the house. They just paid $2,000 for the house. Now the principal has gone down so much interest has been paid. Alex is going to see the complete breakdown. And I also received that email. And every month the seller will be seeing that email that comes directly from the unmatched service. Okay? Go ahead, just literally. I didn't hear you.
The new end owner that I potentially refinance the property to.
The end owner? There are 2 ways to do it. If you do it by literally transferring the title, you own the house and can do whatever you want with it. Okay. Another way to do it is also remember that you have the responsibility to pay them. I have Alex behind me, right? And I have Bank of America. And you have to be responsible people 2009. Okay. Another thing you can do is if you want to feel more secure, and I think this will depend on your Peruvian, Mexican, Argentine friend, whoever comes right. You know him, and you're doing the transaction with him, and you're going to understand, you need to make sure that the person generates the income. You're going to do the same work that a bank does, but you're going to be more flexible than I am. Well, if the house is going to cost $2,200, I make sure that so-and-so can generate $6,600 or more in income, which is the equivalent of 3 times the mortgage payment. Something very simple, okay? And I ensure, give me the last 6 months of your bank statements, because I don't want him to start working on my past. I want to be sure that he has been generating income for 6 months. Then I approve the loan. Shares of that company? Are we forming a company with a group of 400 people? Nationwide? Okay. In fact, the Crew brothers over there, they also have shares in that company, 2009. We formed this company in Nationwide, and we're already in 47 states because we want to speak the same language from the moment the escrow opens until it closes. And they are trained and authorized people from the same community, and all they do is creative transactions. Okay? So when you have a deal one day, seller finance, subject to, there's another one called innovation, but I won't get into that. But novation requires a lot. It's delicate. And there's another one called the hybrid. Those are also delicate transactions. Please, for the sake of caution, to protect the transaction, open escrow with Get Creative title, or at least if it's not, as I said, in 47 states or less, make sure it's not in your own state. Ready? Let's continue here. I know you have a lot of questions and I'm more than happy to answer them, but I want to keep going here. Divorce properties listed in the MLS for a long time, the seller doesn't want to lower the price. No equity. We'll talk about that. I'll answer your question now. No equity. And we're going to do an exercise on how to search for those properties. How much time do we have left? 5 minutes. What's your question?
How open are you to making the speech? Can you contact the owner directly?
If the realtor is not open to being subject to, can you contact the owner? The answer is yes. If you're not an agent, if you are an agent, you can lose your license. Okay? But if you're not an agent, do it with confidence, because I know of hundreds, maybe thousands of cases where deals fall through even when the seller is willing to go through with the transaction. You're willing, but there are people who are an obstacle. No, let's be honest. If we find it under contract still for 6 months, ahead with the transaction, and at the end, pay the commission to the seller, to the realtor. Now, if it's out, if the 6 months have passed and it expired, then it's bad for you and the realtor. You didn't know how to do your job. Ready? Let's do an exercise here. Most of them have, or all of them have, a cost of really $100. This batch list that costs about $300 more has other modules. This one is completely free. It's called Pro Where You Send. And we're going to do an exercise here because remember that later this afternoon with the Creo team, Julio is going to use another tool, but that's okay because when you go home, I want you to take away tools that you can use from your home. Ready? You sign up, it's free. Now, it's ready. You sign up, it's free. I'm going to log in here with my username, password. Hey, that DJ is really good. Okay, ready. What do we have here? Very simple. Do we have a map of the US? Here we can enter the address, zip code, county, whatever it is, right? I'm going to discuss this right now. Lead times, because that's where we're headed. Property types. What type of properties? So here we can choose single-family homes, condos, or townhouses, mobile homes, multifamily properties from 2 to 4 units, multifamily properties with 5 or more units, commercial land, and others. Here we can filter by price, by the number of bedrooms and bathrooms. And these are other filters. For example, the number of stories, like levels, like floors, the size of the building, etc. I'm going to skip ahead because I have little time left after exploring at your house. Okay. What I want to focus on next, Alexis, let's see if you all remember. Let's see if you're paying attention because they gave me the hardest time slot and we haven't had coffee yet. What are the most common reasons a person would be willing to sell their property? And what else? What else? Perfect. There's one missing. There's one that isn't equity. Perfect. And if we combine them all, there will be pain for that person. Let's go here to LED types, and I'm going to put this here, and we can combine it with absentee owners, which are absentee owners who don't live there. Like empty nesters, the same thing. What does free and clear mean? It means that there's no debt, so it's good for financing, not for your objective. Okay. What does it say here? Low equity. What does it say here? Negative or equity. Alexis, why would I buy a property with negative equity? If the mortgage is $1,500 and you can rent it for $2,500, why not? And that equity, you'll recover it because you make a monthly mortgage payment. The principal goes down. Over the years, property values increase, creating a gap in your favor. So you're obviously going to recover it. And during that time, you collect rent. So you're obviously going to recover it. And during that time, you're collecting rental income. Now, if that person lists it on the market, will they be able to sell it? No. But if you do it through those, you can sell it. And if you tell them, I'll pay the closing costs, how is that going to motivate the person? And the closing costs are like $5,000, $7,000, $1,000. If you go to the bank and buy a house for 400,000, the bank is going to ask you for 20. How much is that? $80,000 plus closing costs. Wouldn't it be more generous of you? Come in with zero down payment and pay the closing costs, and practically your down payment was $5,000? I left myself a delicious lunch. Absolutely okay. If we do this, please give me a famous and well-known city. A good city that, don't tell me a city that absolutely nobody knows. Mason, that's good. Really good. It made me, but Ohio definitely doesn't show up here. Let's see. Look, I see 2,300 properties. Of course, we don't have a filter. There's all kinds of stuff there. Let's put single family homes here to filter a bit. We've already dropped to 15,000, which means there were almost 5,000 multifamily properties. And let's put absentee owners here, meaning the owner isn't here, lives in another state. And that brings me down to 2,300 properties. Okay, let's put no equity here, or we can put the equity. I have 166 properties left where the owner isn't present in another state and that have no equity. Oh, and this one is really good. Do you know what this is? MLS failed. Do you know what this means? They put it under contract. The realtor tried to sell him the property, and within 6 months, the contract expired. Will that person be motivated to sell? That's really good. And it's good because you see, if I don't put it, in some cases, when you call the seller, you have to go through the filter of, hey, are you interested in selling your house? You're going to come across some cases where they say they're not interested. Another case, yes, I'm interested. If it was an MLS failed, that means the person already tried to sell the house through an agent, which means they want to sell the house. The desire is there, but they couldn't because the people didn't do a good job. Or maybe they did a good job, but it just didn't work out. Or maybe there are other circumstances that prevented them from selling the house. Those are certainly wonderful cases to be subjective indeed. What else? What more can we filter? Absentee owners with low equity? We can leave it there. We have 166, okay? Zombie properties. In fact, it's very important. I don't know if you see it, it's just that it's there. I think so. Yes, you can see it here. It has a question mark. There it is, the definition of what each of them means. Zombie means it's a good one. It says vacant homes that are in the pre-foreclosure process. Okay? Vacant properties that are in a pre-foreclosure process, which means the person has already stopped paying the mortgage, but the bank hasn't repossessed the house yet. Typically, homeowner and the bank are highly motivated to find a buyer. Typically, the bank and the owner are highly motivated to find a buyer. Ready? In fact, let's put it here. Thank you for bringing that up because I'm going to put it here. Let's add it here. I prefer closure, so we have now. Won't take it off, Mason. It's not very big. If we look for a city like Charlotte, Atlanta, and mix the three, the person stopped paying the mortgage and is in trouble. You're out of state and have no equity. He has 3 motivations to sell that house. Let's keep it simple here in Mason. We currently have 166 properties here. I can do this. Okay, I mark all of them. And now I am definitely going to certainly proceed. Skip trace. Do you know what skip trace is? No. There are people who nodded. For those who don't know what skip trace is, you pay 0.10, 0.12, depending on the company, per property, and they get you all the information about that seller, the homeowner, phone number, email, etc. Okay, so I'm not going to do it for everything, but I'm going to dive into, for example, this house here. Do you know what I'm going to give something to someone here? Who here is from Mason?
The lawyer.
Aren't you from Mason? No. Josefina and Max. Who else is from Mason? But I can move. Hey, I was going to go to another city, but since we don't have time left, it's just not fair to give a gift to Maxi and Josefina. Come on, give me 5 minutes, please. You give me, okay, another city, Atlanta. Is anyone here from Atlanta?
Yes.
No, but not you. You don't count. Charlotte, from the audience. I want people from the audience here.
Charlotte.
Yeah, let's go to Charlotte.
Dayton.
Let's go to Dayton.
Sorry, please.
I'll give you free info. Last night.
Yeah.
Hey, Cincinnati. Let's go to Cincinnati. Cincinnati is great. No? Okay, don't confuse me. Cincinnati. We have T894 properties already with the filter. Let's add the preferred clutch filter to see if we have anything because 2,000 and almost 3,000 is a lot. Anyway. Look at that, how beautiful. Now, we have 5 properties in the city of Cincinnati that have no equity, where the owner doesn't live in the city and has already stopped making payments. There's a big pain there. I'm going to step in here. Who said Cincinnati? Okay, those from Cincinnati take note. I'm going to give you a gift. Write down the address. 1321 Observatory Avenue, located at Cincinnati.
Okay. I'll just be right back.
1321. Look, the house looks cool. 1321 Observatory Avenue. I'm not going to give you the house, but I'm going to give you the owner's information. Okay? Because what are we going to do this afternoon? Let's call. So you're going to call. Okay? If you put it under contract, it gives me something. I'm going to do a skip trace here. We give this little button. I have a balance of $17 accumulated and there to take $0.10. It costs $0.10. How does this work? Like a prepaid card. You put your card in it and you accumulate there, I don't know, 100, 200, 500,000, whatever you want. And then they deduct the $0.10 from you. I'm going to click here. And by magic, voila. We have here that Cosette Neely, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, is the owner of that house, whose mailing address says it's Marina, California, and we had filtered that it was an absentee owner. So now we not only have the person's name, we have the mailing address, be their primary residence in California. Hey, let me tell you something about California, Cincinnati, in the great distance. That person must be in a lot of pain already. Probably not. There's their phone number. It has a voiceover from the office. Probably almost always the people who have voiceovers are doctors or business owners. It has a landline. Landlines are the old phones. There are still people with landline phones. It has 2 voiceovers, and it has hers. Don't steal it from her. Go ahead with your question. Oh, sorry, before your question, check this out. That lady has 2 properties below. There you can even see that person's portfolio. Sure, one is in Cincinnati and the other one is in California, 2009. That tells me 2 things. That lady moved. She lives in California, that's clear. But sometimes I see 20 properties there. When I see a higher volume, what does that tell me about the person? An investor. Ready? So in this case, lady has a portfolio valued at $1,027,000. The total value of both houses, but she says she has a total mortgage of $891,000. So between the 2 houses, she already owes $891,000. And down below we can see a breakdown. In the California house, she owes $821. And in Cincinnati, she owes $205. And it says equity. The California house has an equity of $134. And in the Cincinnati house, she has $1,000. So if she were to sell the house on the market, that's why she hasn't sold it, because the mortgage is aware. If I go to the closing, I'm going to have to pull out a check for $20,000. I'm selling my house. If I offer her the subject to, I say I'll pay the closing costs. Just let me take over the existing debt. Because if I go here to the property area that you see here, the loan is FHA. And here is the interest. And how much is that loan? $800. The people of Cincinnati. How much could you rent a house in Cincinnati for? Your business would cover the closing costs of $5,000 and the rent now is $1,500. And what's going to happen in 10 years? That $200,000 house is going to rise to $400,000, $500,000. You're starting to build equity without any capital. A lot of people tell me, Alex, I don't have any money. There's your solution. But I need the $5,000 to cover the closing costs. Lend me $5,000 and in a year I'll pay you back $10,000. Would you do it? Sure, why not? And now what do I do? Where do I get the additional $5,000? Well, there's no money. Needed from the rent to do the business. People ask. Well, she asks, do you recommend contacting the owner directly and not the realtor? This property is not listed on the market, so our only option is to call the owner. Okay. When we go to an exercise we can do, for example, we have 3 filters here, right? I'm going to delete them. Let's reset this here. I can put MLS active here. MLS active are properties currently for sale in the MLS. Currently, 343 properties are for sale, 34 with low equity. If I call them, these properties likely need a study and have been on the market for 3 to 6 months, nearing expiration. Both seller and realtor are stressed, fearing job loss and commission. So, if I start calling those people, those properties may need a study, and we don't have the time. Those properties likely are on the market for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, or 6 months and are about to expire. Not only is the seller in pain, but the realtor is also feeling the pressure because they're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to lose my commission. In 2 weeks, this contract expires. And now, Mr. Rialto, I have a solution for you. This is the solution, and I'm going to pay the commission. All right, folks? Wait, you need to qualify. Very simple. Let's do a very simple exercise. I want us to take photos for the rest of the afternoon. Come closer, let's take a photo together. You and me? Only if you came with your spouse, then with your spouse. If you came with your family, let's take photos together, okay? They're going to post them on social media and tag me. Or I don't know, tag me. They're going to tag me. And from there, I'm going to do a raffle and select one person to give away 1 hour for free so you can ask me anything you want. Please, no marriage counseling. I'm not a psychologist. Just real estate. I'm here for you folks.